I appreciate it. Irwin Jackson, 1341 Jackson Bluff. During the past 2 years, I've come to this commission, and the mayor has called me a liar, and then off the camera admits that, in fact, he was wrong. And in today's paper, the city attorney English has called me a criminal. My crime is storing a rake in a city licensed, permitted, and approved utility shed built on my property and using a rake and a hose stored in this building to rake leaves at another property I own. Using Mr. English's logic, then, a plumber or an electrician who stores their tools and work truck at their home cannot use those tools on other properties. City police who take their tools home, car, guns, and computers, will be restricted to use these tools to fight crime, but only at their personal home. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is no more than political payback, an attempt by this mayor to silence me. This will not work, as you can imagine. The real crime being committed is by that man there, John Marks, and members of this commission for refusing to give back the illegal deferred compensation that they gave themselves. The fact that John Marks took $86,000 from a nonprofit organization, ADE, accepted $750,000 from Honeywell's lawyers, and continues to take money from one of the largest contractors in the city, AT&T. John Marks has refused to answer questions over the last 2 years that I've raised in front of local media, and he retaliates against those who dare to point out his self-serving actions. Several individuals, including a Tallahassee police officer, has warned me that I would face political retaliation for speaking out. They may not silence me, but it will be a chilling effect for others who follow me. The picture you see here, this is a career criminal that the city hired to spy on me, my family, my business, my employees, and my students. He has 4 arrests. He was fired from the police department, or they were going to terminate him, so he did resign before he was fired, and his license has been revoked. This man was perfect for Jim English to hire, to spy on me. The full scope of this clandestine activity we'll never know because they were caught. Luckily, we have a picture here of the woman around my property wanting to stop the entire surveillance that they have on there.
It's expired?
It's expired. In summary, let me say, because of this and more, I believe that the City Commission should immediately fire Jim English to send a clear message that spying on Tallahassee residents will not be tolerated. This decision was made by a desperate man.
I'm sorry, your time has
who
expired,
can hear
sir.
the footsteps of law enforcement heading in his
Mr. Jackson,
direction.
your time has expired.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker is Russell Price, also on 13.9, followed by Mark Scott.
Russell Price, 241 John Knox Road, office address. Let me say first, I have the highest respect for your office and the job that you do, and I know it's quite difficult, and, as well as staff. But today I feel compelled to speak in defense of Mr. Jackson and what he's gone through. I've been a developer and broker in commercial real estate for approximately 30 years, and I've gone through my share of disagreements with city staff on different issues, I hope all amicably. But I may be one of the ones that has filed a claim to recover money. We had a smart meter put on, installed on our office. After owning it for 18 years, the prongs inside our receptacle was jammed, and it cost us about $800 to repair it. We filed a claim and were told that it was our fault. receptacle was broken. I didn't file a small claims court, but the knowledge of knowing that had I filed one and had you have to mount a defense, that you might have hired a private investigator to watch me and my family and my workers, that is chilling. And let me see if I understand what Mr. Jackson did. For 20 years, he used an access easement gate that was through a city utility easement to access the shed where he stored some lawn equipment. And so the city came along based on a complaint, locked the gate and kept it locked for 6 months, thereby denying him access to his equipment. He had to make other arrangements, so he tried to recoup the cost. And for this reason, the city has jumped to the point where they hire a private investigator to investigate a zoning issue. And so I have these questions. I can try to jump to the bottom here. I spoke to the planning department and the growth management department, both of whom I work with closely on many different deals. They tell me that most of these complaints on zoning issues, because like Mr. Jackson said, all over the city, vendors, contractors, tradespeople carry their equipment home and store it, use their homes, sheds, garages. So most of the time, no violation is ever investigated unless it's complaint driven. So was the initial complaint filed with the city based on Mr. Jackson's use of the access, or based on the zoning violation? That's first question. If it was he notified that he's in violation of the zoning law? Has he been notified, and has he been given time to correct the violation and come into compliance? Usually time is given, and so I don't know. I hadn't talked to him about it. I'm just going by what I've read. Has the proper enforcement personnel been involved in the alleged violation?
Excuse me, your time's expired.
Time's up. I would just ask, finally, has Mr. Jackson been treated the same as I would be treated or any other citizen on a typical zoning violation, and was proper procedure followed in the case? And thank you very much.
Next speaker is Mark Scott. Mr. Scott will be followed by Marshall Cassidy.
Thank you for listening to me. My name is Mark Scott. I've been a resident back in Tallahassee for about 7 years. Moved here, went to college here, moved back 7 years ago, owned property in both the county and the city. I really wanted to, along with several of the speakers here, wanted to express my extreme disappointment for the lack of ethics, the abuse of power, and the arrogance exhibited by members of this board. I'm not anyone that normally gets up here. I spoke twice in my life in front of a panel, but felt compelled to do this. I've seen the tapes where Dr. Jackson comes up here and has brought up numerous accusations. Many, seems like most of them, have a substantial amount of validity. I keep hearing, well, this was legal. The city attorney makes it legal. You guys spend a lot of money on what's legal. How much energy do you put in what's ethical? Do you guys feel it's ethical to take money from somebody that you're voting on a substantial, spending our money on something that you're getting paid for from that vendor? Is that ethical? It may be legal. Is it ethical? Does that ever come into consideration when your attorney tells you it's legal? Does he say it's legal, but it might not be ethical? And I've been in business. I understand the difference between ethics and legal. And you guys clearly have no regard for what's ethically correct. You seem to be straddling some fence of what's legal. Dr. Jackson's uncovered numerous questionable activities, some possible illegal activities, and many, like I said, unethical. Like he asked before, who initiated this activity? I'm going to go kind of specifically to this particular incident. Who initiated the activity to padlock the guy's gate? Have anybody looked into that? And whose job is it to investigate that type of thing? It just seems like somebody out of the blue, his gate gets padlocked. Has the guy been fired who decided it was company property or city property? What's happened to that guy? You padlock somebody's property? Does that mean if you didn't like something I say here, do I have to go worry about you padlocking my door, taking 6 months, saying, well, we thought we own the access to it? Has anybody been fired for that? I mean, it's either incompetent, unethical, or both. And somebody needs to be fired. And Jim English seems to think that there's nothing illegal and there's no problems when somebody takes money from a vendor. There seems to be no problems with spending $50 million of our money on a boondoggle that's worthless. Instead of, I've been in business, why wouldn't you take a sample? Why did we have to spend $50 million all at once? Seems awful questionable. And if I was bringing you that customer and I was getting paid by him, I promise you I would not vote when it came to that situation. And I promise you, you would know I was getting paid by him, and so would the citizens. From here on, I'm telling you, you ought to fire the guy who told you it was a city property and that told you to padlock it. You ought to pay the money to Dr. Jackson there, because he seems to have uncovered more ways for you guys to quit losing our money and spending our money than any of the money you guys are spending on private investigators, $400,000 in private investigators. I talked to some county commissioners. I don't believe they spend a penny on private investigators. Now, maybe you guys do it direct. I understand the concept of protecting.
Sorry, your time has expired.
That's what attorneys are for. So I appreciate in the future you treat Dr. Jackson with the respect.